Now, the 360 square kilometre Gaza Strip is now largely uninhabitable. 69% of homes, schools, hospitals, mosques, cemeteries, shops and offices have been destroyed or badly damaged. Israeli bombardments have reduced much of its infrastructure into an estimated 40 million tons of rubble. And Gaza also contains about 7,500 tons of unexploded bombs and shells. Experts say clearing that could take up to 14 years. The war has caused damage valued at $18.5 billion. That's 7 times Gaza's GDP in 2022. And even if the ceasefire becomes permanent, it could take 350 years for Gaza's economy to recover if it remains under an Israeli blockade. Let's talk to Simon Elmont about this. He's an explosive ordnance disposal expert for Humanity and Inclusion, which is an NGO working in situations of poverty and exclusion, conflict and disaster. Simon's joining us from London. Thank you very much for being with us on Al Jazeera. We're seeing right now thousands of people wanting to move back to their homes in northern Gaza as per the ceasefire agreement. But just how dangerous is it right now in Gaza? And because of these unexploded ordinances, how dangerous is it for people to return to their homes?
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me onto the show. It's extremely dangerous. Obviously, as we've just heard on the news, people are not moving as fast as we were hoping. So one of those minor hiccups that we were expecting within the whole process. But yes, when the people do start to move back to their homes, then we can expect an increase in accidents. The potential threat is everywhere in Gaza. The statistics that you just mentioned, I think, are probably a little outdated now, to be honest. I expect it to take a lot longer than 14 years to clear Gaza of all of the ordnance that's been fired either from Gaza or into Gaza from outside. The threat now lies within the rubble, and this is our greatest concern. And
so what is the biggest threat right now, the most dangerous thing for civilians to worry about when they return to their homes? Is it landmines? Is it other types of weapons that have not exploded?
So landmines are not necessarily a threat, not in their conventional use anyway in Gaza. There has been no evidence of landmines being laid by either side. We do know, however, that large anti-vehicle mines have been used by the IDF as demolition charges. So these have been strapped to supporting columns of buildings and then detonated to drop buildings to the ground. So there is a chance, and actually we have seen evidence by photographs that there are these mines that haven't functioned when being used as demolition charges in rubble. So there is a threat, although again they've not been laid in the conventional way. The main problem is that the amount of ordnance, the scale of which is unprecedented. Many of these items do not function. We use a percentage rate of somewhere between 9 and 13% of ordnance that's fired does not function as it's designed to.
Right.
Sorry.
How difficult is it to locate these types of weapons right now?
It's going to be very difficult because the weapons are inside the rubble. So concrete, it contains rebar, which is made of metal. So any traditional detection equipment is not going to function as we would in open areas of farmland, for instance, in other areas of the world. So actually finding the ordnance itself within the rubble is going to be a very laborious task, technically very difficult, but the rubble will have to be removed in a very slow way.
Just briefly, let me ask you, how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost to make the whole of Gaza safe again?
Cost, we're talking tens of millions of dollars over an extended period of time. I think you mentioned 14 years earlier. I think we'll be looking at least 25 to 30 years before the main problem is removed. But as we see in Europe, we are still finding weapons from the Second World War, which was some 80 years ago. I expect us to still be finding ordnance in Gaza for a great deal of time after an initial clearance project have been undertaken.
Thank you so much for talking to us about this. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Simon Elmont joining us there from London.